Hello folks and welcome to Tippcast, again with myself Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by the head of sport in the Nina Guardian, Shane Brophy. Shane, as we were just kind of teeing up the show there, we realised it's been a fairly grim year all round for Tipperary GAA and ladies Gaelic games. We've won nothing and we're out of everything.
Yeah, sure. We better made a call to maybe we'll leave it for we take a break for Tippcast maybe till the new year. But yeah, sure, like we have no more representation in Munster in female or men's competitions. We're just left at a bit of under 21 and a few schools games. But I suppose when I put the question to you yesterday about the lineup and thinking back over the year, I think the only All-Ireland we won was the Under-17 Celtic Challenge, and that is effectively the B competition in minor hurling. So after that, I don't think there was any All-Irelands won. Got to an All-Ireland in junior Camogie. Took steps forward, I suppose, in senior hurling and senior Camogie, but Jesus, you'd love nothing really to get your teeth into and say you celebrate it and say, God, that was an achievement. So.
Do you think there's other counties looking at us thinking there's obvious stuff we're doing wrong?
I don't know. I just wonder sometimes, the way it's thrown about a tip that we always have the natural hurlers, we always have the hurlers, and that is true. But I think there's more to hurling now and Gaelic football now. I think definitely the fitness levels and athleticism. If you don't, I think maybe tip have fell behind in that your hurling's just not going to get you away with things anymore. You need the athleticism. You need the understanding of game plans and stuff. We're seeing, it's being comfortable on the ball. I know it's probably something that's been brought in for football, that you mind the ball, but definitely you can understand why, because if the other team has the ball, they control what happens. So if you hold on to the ball more in the game, you'll probably win more games than you lose.
It's kind of interesting. I've seen some of these conversations in professional soccer in England during the week. It was all the Liverpool, Man United, and whatever. But now the big money is Newcastle, Man City, so on and so forth. There's kind of a changing in the guard in some respects. Obviously, those teams will still challenge, but a bit of a change in the guard in terms of who's bossing the narrative, who's allowing the rules. For example, those players from Saudi Arabia that might come on loan to Newcastle and whoever. Things are changing at the top of the hurling world as well, and there's no guarantee that Tipperary are going to go back to the days of winning an All-Ireland, regularly enough. We've won one every single decade.
No, I think those days are gone. I think the era of the big three is well and truly gone. I think it's gone since, I suppose, Offaly made that. Well, yeah, I suppose since nearly 40 years. I suppose when Galway made that breakthrough in 1980. Offaly won an All-Ireland, Clare have won it. I suppose Limerick have won it. Waterford came very close on a couple of occasions. So look, all the major counties are putting in serious work into hurling, and they're putting in as much work, if not more, than Tipperary. So look, at this thing of that tip clubs should be doing well in hurling and stuff. They should if they're I'm sure we're probably putting in as much work as all the other clubs in other counties. It's not that tip clubs should turn up and win more games. I think we have to realise that we're just another county along with probably 9 or 10 other major counties at the moment.
But to come back to the raw material point, of course you have to make the best out of it and all that. Are tips still producing the talents?
I think for maybe, I don't know what you think. There was a while there, maybe for a few years there, where it's been a long time since we brought through an Owen Kelly, a real underage superstar. I think we've missed that. I think Tony Kelly is, or a Cian Lynch, just a real superstar of the game. I think we could do with that again. There's potential in a couple of underage players. I'm not going to name names. People can make up their own mind, but there's potential there. I do think, I don't know if you would agree, that a big superstar young lad every now and again, like a Joe Canning or a Tony Kelly or a DJ Carey when he was younger, players that really sort of excite the masses, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I wonder, have we actually had those? Like Noel McGrath in
I,
some respects, John Bubbles O'Dwyer, just in terms
yeah,
of like unbelievable talent.
yeah,
And then we haven't like year after year had the
generational
right.
talent.
Yeah, I would say they are fairly generational
Yeah.
talent. We just haven't had the team around them or like the setup around them. Like there's been a few years there where, you know, and I'm talking about during the last like maybe 5 to 10 years, like obviously we had good years here and there, but too often like the team or the shape of the team or the essence or something, there just seems to be a little bit of like I don't know, like disharmony, which means that it's very difficult for them to, you know, have a platform to succeed. Like we did have the 2010 generation, if
Yeah.
you will, and like we got to some finals, won a few finals, but kind of tend to just, there seems to be a history of just coming up short.
Yeah, look, I suppose in recent times you can't argue with that. It's like in some ways, like I think we have to be very careful about that. Like for that, I suppose that core group of the 2010 team that won 3 All Irelands in 10 years, like that's a fair achievement. And like I think the fact that I suppose the fact is that before that you had that great Kilkenny team, and now after them you've had the late Limerick team that, sure, Kilkenny and Limerick won 4s in a row and 5s in a row, or maybe like that. You can downplay actually the 3 and 10 years the Tip did get, and they were very unlucky not to win a couple more as well. Like so, like it's I sort of hate this narrative that like that if you don't win, nearly one All Ireland or one county title is not enough now. If you don't back it up with a second one, the first one doesn't mean anything. Like I think that's a very, very dangerous. I don't think that's a nice narrative to be going. Now, I remember I felt it in 2016 when we won the All Ireland, and I'd say within an hour I was half thinking, Jesus, we got to win next year to validate it. And the more I think about it since, geez, that was stupid. We should have. Yeah, I think you have to celebrate every All Ireland on its merits, like, and just
Yeah,
too
but
hard won.
I think you do have to have the ambition to go back to
Oh,
back.
I'm not saying you don't, but there's no guarantees that you can go and win the second one because there's too many other good teams out there.
Yeah, I remember actually chatting to Aidan Ryan, this would have been the Guts 10 years ago, and he was saying that when in 1991, when they played the All Ireland, that he felt based on the narrative around at the time that they weren't playing for one All Ireland that particular year in 91, they were playing for 2 because people had discredited what happened in 89 because, you know, and I mean, he didn't say this, but people were saying, oh, you didn't beat a top county in the All Ireland final. So it's probably always been like that.
Yeah.
The narrative
Probably has, yeah. Like it's, but then.
But you know, to me, like it's more all the years there where Tipperary weren't as competitive as they could be. Like 15 and 17 getting to All Ireland finals. 2018, that was poor enough. Obviously, 19, Tipperary got the bounce of the ball and won the All Ireland. But since then, you know, it's like Tip should always be competitive in these championships.
Yeah,
you can't win them all, but you need to be competitive in every one of them.
Where I even 18 when we didn't win a game, but we drew 2, and I think we lost. Okay, lost the first one to Limerick convincingly enough, and we were ahead of Clare when for that the Jake Morris ball hits the post and they go. But like that year, I think we were very, very competitive. We were just missing a link. I think 2020.
But we weren't playing well. We dropped
no.
McGrath, we had Cathal Barrett playing midfield. The team was all over the shop.
But I couldn't. I disagree that we weren't competitive. Like we were. We just weren't able to win the tight matches. Like we weren't. What would you say? We weren't a complete package. I'd agree. We weren't. You knew the setup could have been slightly better, but like I would have said 2022 when we were. Jesus, like you were sure. What was the average losing margin that year? Was it 9 points or something? Like it was. We were, and this year. I suppose we got to be careful about this year. Like we definitely took a step forward this year, even though it didn't feel like it with the performances against Waterford and Galway. But look, from where we were in 22 was a step forward, and look, if we take another step forward next year, like we should be getting to Croke Park for at least the semi-final. And like if I was to call it now, and I know we'd be chatting about the year gone by, if I was looking ahead to next year. Do I think Tip could win an All Ireland next year? They can. What's the likelihood? Probably not likely. Like so, but we need an awful lot to go their way. Maybe the likes of Limerick to have a dip. Like, but I would say if Tipperary are, I think, are as good as everybody in the chasing pack behind Limerick.
Yeah, well, The other reason that 2018 season annoyed me was, losing by 6 points to
Yeah.
Kilkenny in the league final as well, and it was
Yeah.
an era of losing a few league finals there. David Hogan says Jason Ford was the last underage superstar. He was different level at 18, 19. Robbie Ryan, Darragh Mack, and Tom Delaney have the same wow factor potential. Again, we won't put any pressure on him, but
no, but I think the thing like we always knew Jason had, but it took him a good few years to break into. Like you knew once Owen Kelly came of age at 20, once he became, like, you saw Nicky English had him on the bench when he was still a minor in 2000. Like that's sort of a player that I would say in a modern context, Kyle Hayes could nearly move straight up from bring that underage pedigree straight away, like, and just is almost fearless in some ways. That's the kind of player I'm talking about. That, like, we saw Kyle Hayes as an underage. Like, I suppose in some ways he was a physical freak. He was nearly a man in a child's body when he was 16, 17, 18 years of age, and it was easy for him to step up then, like, so.
Yeah, and I wonder, are too many young lads not physically prepared when they come out to senior? Like, you look at some of the Limerick lads, and I always remember a couple of years ago watching the UL freshers, and the Limerick players they had were just machines. Cathal O'Neill, Colin Coughlin, all ready for senior. Aidan O'Connor.
Whereas, I definitely think they've had to step on a lot of counties for a few years there on that, but I think a lot of counties have copped on that. That's an important part of inter-county now, and like, I suppose the link up that Tip would have formalised with Satanta over the last 2 years should lead to the fact that I suppose anybody that's starting at maybe under 14, 15 now, okay, it's going to be 6-7 years before their senior level stand, but like they're on. If they weren't doing it beforehand, they're definitely doing the right things now. And look, I would be optimistic looking at the schools. I know we'll be talking about schools later. Like, I think a lot of our schools teams are doing particularly well at the moment, and I like to think that's a lot down to the schools, but also down to you would think any of the leading players in a schools team you would think are on the radar of it, or have been on the radar of the development squad over the last few years.
Yeah, okay, we're going to circle back to highs and lows of the year later on, which will be more so the latter by the sound of the way we're going so far. Richard Hogan says, just a bit of managerial news. Eugene Cloonan has ended his term with Greg Ballycallan in Kilkenny after a very successful season. He's to be replaced by Declan Brown of Moyle Rovers, who was successful before. Like, it's very interesting that Eugene Cloonan, who probably visited upon Greg Ballycallan one of their most painful days in that All-Ireland club final, that he ends up managing them. Can you think of another example of something like that happening?
Yeah, just nothing comes to mind yet. It's just weird in a way. I know they've developed a great bond, those two clubs, over the years, and that's why Eugene was brought down there. And like, I would know the Greg Ballycallan set up pretty well. I have a lot of family who play for that club down there, or not play, but they be in that parish. And I know they played 4 or 5 minors on their team. Like, they were really building, and they got to a county quarter final. So. And I think Declan Brown was manager there a couple of years ago, and he got them to an All-Ireland Intermediate Club semi-final. I think they might have lost to Charleville, I think, in a semi. So, like, I suppose that they were keen to get him back just shows you how highly they rate him. Like, so, and I suppose when he's finished with the Tip footballers, they've gone back to him, and I suppose it'd be interesting to see how he goes down there again in a senior context.
Yeah, for sure. So Liam Cahill has decided that he won't be announcing a Tipperary panel until late January is how it's looking. So another couple of months, and I'm sure they've been doing gym there for a while.
Yeah.
So he'll get a fair old run at, I suppose, all the and what I'm hearing in other counties is it's a case of like players who are towards the latter end of the panel are being pitted in sort of like challenge match scenarios against players who could potentially come into the panel. And I know details will be sparse enough, but how do you reckon he's looking at this couple of months?
Yeah, I suppose firstly, you'd love to have had something to dissect and stuff, and who's in and who's out. But like, I can understand it, and I as far as I can, I know you probably be more aware of other counties. I don't think many counties even disclosed their panels last week before the 24th November official start date. So.
It was always a little bit unusual for Tip to do that because
So I suppose in some ways it does give him a little bit of reading room, and like we will have Munster League games in January, and I suppose there probably will be some challenge matches, I would think, in December where we'll get an idea of who's in. Like we do know, I suppose, some of the names that have been drafted in, all right. And like I would use the gym in the Abbey Court and Ina, and I'd be seeing a lot of guys in there which is I'm not going to name names, like, because like they're not officially in there, but they could be trialing, or so I don't know, put them under pressure, like. But
so what do you bench, Shane?
I don't bench, like. Not that.
No, Scott work too.
But yeah, I think he's probably I suppose it allows the players that are being trialed, I suppose it takes the pressure off them to a certain extent, and they can just really go about their work for the next 2 months, really, and show the best of themselves without maybe being under pressure to really light it up maybe in games, or maybe it takes the comfort back, or it keeps them under pressure. No, that's the point I didn't mean. That if you're already in the 40, you feel you've made it, whereas actually you still have something to prove, over the next 2 months. That's what I meant to say.
And like, so I think from a managerial point of view, I think it totally makes sense. Yeah. And I'd imagine in the past, and maybe it's still a consideration now, but part of the reason of doing it is just, a financial thing, because, gear, food after training, all that kind of stuff. It must, that must be partly, partly to do with the bottom line anyway. So like, there's not too much more we can say on that. But
I'd say they probably have a core 40 or 50. Was like, I just noticed that the hurlers and the footballers started last Friday night. They wasted no time. The first night that they were allowed, they were all in Dr. Morris Park, like, so. And they were had to make some videos for the Santa Dash and stuff, and the fundraiser next weekend. So I suppose that's something if people were considering something to do next Sunday to get the turles, and I suppose it's a fundraiser for the all the money raised will go towards the underage development squads, which are, I suppose, we're all saying we need to develop players. Like that's where all that money, those funds will go. But I think it's a good idea. Plus, look, we'll know in challenge games and in the Munster League games, I suppose those fixtures will be out soon enough that who are they looking at, who do they not, who's in, who's out. We'll know through the league in terms of how to line up guys. How are they looking? Like I don't know how you think. I like if a Noel McGrath or Bonner Maher probably don't need to be used a lot in the National League. Like we want them guys fresh for the summer, like, and I know they'll probably want to play, but like maybe one or 2 games out of the 5 or something. Like it just like I think definitely when you get to 31, 32 and you have a lot of miles in the clock, it's all about keeping lads fresh at that age rather than over trying to get too much into their legs.
Yeah, like I'd be worried if I saw the same faces playing throughout the Munster League and throughout the league, the first half of the league. I'd be quite worried. Yeah. Like look at the Dublin footballers, even though they're not as dominant as they used to be, and they're back on top, obviously. They will use the O'Byrne Cup for playing players that are nowhere near it. And fair enough, it's a little bit easier there because they'll go into that against, a lot of counties that will be beaten before they go out on the pitch, and they'll get a few extra games and all that kind of stuff. But they'll use it as development only. So I'd be very concerned if I saw a lot of Tip's most experienced players playing in that part of the year.
Look, and I think you have to be prepared to lose a few games in the Munster League. Like it's all about like the first important game for Tip next year is the away match against Dublin in the National League. Like I don't think anybody really, like I've seen Tipperary struggle in Munster leagues and they come out firing in the league. I've seen Tipperary have great Munster leagues and they come out the first round of the National League and they get hockeyed. Like there's no. I think definitely the Munster League is all about, and I think we're seeing that too. Like we saw it in the O'Byrne Cup last year, the amount of walkovers that were given. I do think these matches are starting to be a problem for managers because there's too much going on. There's Fitzgibbon, there's Sigerson. It's and I know that the reason, part of the reason the authorities want to keep them is that it legislates. I suppose it's easier to monitor games because other counties will be going playing challenge matches, but that's fine. But I would say, why can't you let a county manage its own pre-season? Like why? Like you don't. Maybe okay, you have to sanction the challenge matches, but like you're not going to say a county team's not going to play 4 challenge matches in a week. Like you can always say, okay, no, geez, you're playing 2 challenge, not too many. We're not giving you we're not sanctioning you for another challenge match. You've already played 3 already this week. Like you're killing guys. Like so. And plus it gives them the flexibility to do what they want to do rather than what an organisation wants them to do.
I suppose a lot of it comes down to provincial councils needing to raise a few quid as well. So that's.
I know. I think a lot of the money from those competitions goes into the players' injury fund, which is fine. But what to offset that, could you give the gate receipts from the first round of the National League to the players' injury fund? And the first round of the National League as hurling and football is always. I think it's always has one of the largest crowds because it's the first round when people are mad to go to games, it's but all those things could be easily rectified if there was ever, and I think it's probably going to come in the next few years that these pre-season competitions will go.
Okay, well, look, let's reflect on Clonmel Commercials and their exit from the Munster Football Championship over the weekend against Dingle of Kerry. Dylan Gainey did most of the damage there. From a Tipperary point of view, it is very disappointing to see Clonmel being knocked out at the semi-final stage because we had, bigger aspirations for them. And I suppose once the likes of Killidangan went out, the last of the hopes went on Clonmel.
They did, yeah. Look, I think they had the potential to kick on. But like you're playing the champions of Kerry. I know the Kerry club champions, but like this Dingle team lost in the semi-final of the Kerry County Championship to Mid Kerry. So look, they were knocked out by a divisional team, and like I wouldn't be a fan of divisional teams, not only Kerry but anywhere. But look, it was still a very, very good Dingle team with the likes of Thomas Sullivan, Paul Geaney, Conor Geaney. Dylan Geaney was the one that was the star of this game with 5 points from play. You always knew this was going to be a test, and if they got over it, they would have got a huge boost for it. But I don't know. It's just like it was neck and neck the whole way. It was at 10 points apiece inside the last 10 minutes, or 10 points to 9, and Dingle were just able to kick those scores to get to. I think they all 13 points from Dingle came from play at the weekend. Like that just shows you that like there's no average team comes out to Kerry. There mightn't be an Austin Stacks or a Dr. Crokes or a high profile one that we're used to coming out of Kerry, but like this is a quality outfit. And look, bit of luck didn't go Clonmel's the way they had the 2 best goal chances in the match. One came off the post, I think, and another was blocked. Like, so if those go in and you get ahead on the scoreboard, like they were always, I think they were ahead at halftime by a point and then quickly went behind in the second half. But it's always easier when you're ahead on the scoreboard at this stage of the year, even a point or two. You feel you can slow the game down to your own level. And but I suppose the issue for Clonmel is that when they get outside the county, particularly the last few years, they found scoring a problem. Like 10 points is not going to win you many matches. They got 2-7 against Newcastle. That's only 9 scores. Like you saw the likes of Scottstown, what they got last weekend, what Corofin regularly gets. If you're not scoring 14, 15, 16 scores a game in provincial competition, you're going to struggle to win.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I'd imagine one of the main reasons that Oisin McConville had a bit of an input this year was to, and of course he manages both sides of the field. He's a county manager, but you'd be thinking one of the great forwards of his generation that he would be helping him score. Like, is the window for Clonmel Commercials in terms of like an All-Ireland Championship or another Munster, is it closing now?
I still think they have another while, but like they brought through a couple of young lads this year, Keane Smith and Robbie O'Dowd and Ty Condon. Sean O'Connor's only 21, 22. Like, so I think you think for the likes of like there's a fair turnover of players from the 2015 team that won Munster. Like they're practically a new team, maybe bar Seamus Kennedy and Michael Quinn-Niven and maybe a handful more Kevin Fahey. So it all depends. Like Kevin Fahey going off after 37 minutes on Sunday through injury. Like he's one of those players that has that bit of spring where he can penetrate from deep. Like he's able to break lines and maybe, if a team sets up mass defense, he's able to break a tackle and get in behind and maybe get a shot away or create a 2-on-1. So that didn't help either. But you'd have to think they're going to get a few more opportunities because they're probably they're in a position maybe to win a couple more in Tip maybe before this team starts to drift. Like because it looks like they're a good step ahead of the rest in Tipperary at the moment.
And then in terms of the Camogie, we thought Drum and Inch were a team that we could maybe hang our hat on this year as well. And, you know, we're kind of lurching from one misery to the next here, Shane, but we have to cover it because we have been all year. Finished up Sarsfields of Cork 2-11, Drum and Inch 2-7. Lucy Allen scored a couple of goals, Kay Fennessy with 5 points. On the drum side, Emer McGrath scored 4 frees, Miriam Campion 1-1, Siobhan McGrath a goal, and a point apiece for Aoife McGrath and Katie O'Dwyer. But the dream of back-to-back Munster titles is over.
Yeah, it was disappointing, I suppose. They, after, I suppose, winning Munster last year, like they did have a serious ambition to go and win another and at least get back to an All-Ireland semi-final, but that didn't happen. It was the period before half-time where they fell 6 points behind. I think it was 1-4 to 1-4 on 20 minutes, and then it was 2-7 to 1-4 at half-time. Like that was the period that really hurt them, and they got to go at the start of the second half to really get them going. But like I think they only scored 3 points after that. Like they really found scoring tough, even though the conditions on Sunday were quite good in Clonmel. Like, and it was okay. Like pitches have started to, they're not getting any worse at the moment, but like from their point of view, like 2-7 was a disappointing total with the caliber of forwards they have, and just like we all know, like Cork clubs are strong. Okay, the last few years it has been a sort of a Tipperary Clare have tended to dominate the club scene, but it was only a matter of time maybe with Cork beginning to come at winning the All-Ireland again at senior level that there maybe the clubs are going to follow suit and get strong. And now you have Sarsfields getting to the top now and sets up a. I wouldn't like to be the reporter covering the All-Ireland semi-final between Sarsfields of Galway and Sarsfields of Cork. Like it's, I don't know how you do your match reports or writing notes. I always do S. Like if you know, I don't know whether you go C and G or something like that. However, about the commentators, like imagine if you're a commentator that day and doing it, and you're to be trying. You wouldn't be saying anything wrong by saying Sarsfields continuously, but you wouldn't be able to. Your listeners or their viewers would be getting very confused if you didn't differentiate them in some way.
Yeah, you'd probably just have to say Cork Sars, Galway Sars, you know, and even that is a little bit awkward. But I mean, you have to do something. Disappointing for Drum because they scored 2-6 against Lochgiel in the All-Ireland semi-final last year. Didn't play great that day. Again, to not put up a big scoreline, disappointing. And like Shannon Rovers took Clonmorris all the way to extra time, but eventually lost out 1-14 to 2-7 there. Probably just ran out of steam a small bit.
Yeah. I suppose they were chasing it for a lot of it. They got a goal in injury time to go a point up. And you said, God, they just timed this right. But Clonmorris got an equaliser and then powered on in extra time. Goalkeeper Anya Slattery had a massive game for Shannon Rovers. She made some brilliant saves. Like it really, I suppose they did pretty well to get to extra time, only for her excellence in the goals. Like so, but look, Clonmorris are seasons out for like that's their 7th Munster title in a row. The 5 in junior and 2 in intermediate now. Like, and it's in effect is the Kerry ladies Camogie team, like bar a couple of players from other clubs. Like that's what you're playing, like for Patrice Digan and the Leans. Like they're what's Division 2 or Senior B or whatever you call it at intercounty level. So like that's the level they're up against. So even though they've had no championship to play in Kerry because there was no other team at intermediate level. So their only 2 matches in the championship have been in the last 2 weeks. Like so, just mad setups. Like you think the disadvantages maybe are the benefits that Galway club hurlers have in club championships. Like you think the disadvantage what happens to Kerry where they have no game whatsoever, like for their best team.
So I just want to ask you about one thing before we talk about the players' charter that was leaked this week, and it was from a Galway club, and so I believe that the manager has now stepped down from the club. So obviously that situation hasn't gone great. Galway club teams, they're looking to be in the Leinster Club Championship in the next couple of years. I just wonder, with Turin now winning 5 of the last 7 Connacht intermediate club championships, what's going to happen there? Because we know that the club championship's a little bit lopsided. Tip clubs don't have to worry about it this year, as we know. But, you know, there's going to be a little bit of a skewing of the championship if you end up with 3 provinces.
Oh, there would. There's no doubt. I just wonder, I suppose on the Turin point, I think if if they won the Club All-Ireland this year, I would think a lot like what happened to Naas a few years ago, that maybe the Mayo champions would then be obligated to, they can't really stay at intermediate anymore. You would think that they would have to go up to senior, and so that's something that could probably be looked at. But then you have to be careful, like they beat Ballinderreen at the weekend, but Ballinderreen are the third tier winners in Galway, like they're the 25th best team, whereas I think it was Mulla who won the Senior B. Like if they reclassified their Senior B and had Mulla against Turin, there's probably a fair chance Mulla would win. So, but look, it's like what we had with the Seamus Areen for years. Like that's the issue. Galway. I look.
Then again, like Monaleen didn't exactly hammer Turin in the All Ireland final.
Like
They're a senior Limerick team.
Yeah, and I think Father O'Neill's only beat them by a couple of points a couple of years ago. I think Father O'Neill's either lost the final to Tullaroan, or was that the one where they got the sideline cut to win it, I think?
That's the one. No, that was Mooncoin beating someone. Father O'Neill's lost the no, I'm mixing them up. I remember Father O'Neill's losing to Tullaroan. Yeah, sorry. Mooncoin beat, who did they beat? Can't remember.
Yeah, I know. Like it's I suppose in some ways it's unlikely.
Ballygibbon is who Mooncoin beat.
Oh no, yeah, that's junior, so it would be Father O'Neill's and Tullaroan. So, are Turin going to stay as strong as they are forever? Probably not. Like, you're more likely to see a Galway champions being put into Leinster, and maybe if you had three, would you then see a scenario then where you'd have a mini All-Ireland series between the finalists of Munster, Leinster, and Ulster, 16 column. Maybe you have the Munster, Leinster finalists, winners going straight to the All-Ireland semi, and then the runners-up plus the two Ulster teams meeting in quarters. I think that's probably, if it did come to that, it's probably the only way around it.
Yeah. Jeez,
that would be awkward. I don't know if I'd like to see... I don't know if I'd like to see an All-Ireland club champion not being a winning their province, like, which would open the door. But then we saw the same at All-Ireland at inter-county level, and people got used to it. So
yeah, I still dream of a day when we'll get rid of the provincial championships. A club, obviously, at inter-county.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see that.
Can you imagine?
I'd love to see many clubs. Well, you have the 5 counties in Munster. You probably have 3 Ulster counties, 8, Galway 9. So you must have at least 7. You have Wexford,
8 or 9 in Leinster.
Yeah, I'm trying to. You have Wexford, Kilkenny, Carlow, Laois, Westmeath, Offaly, Kildare, Dublin. Like that must be if you had 16 or 17 teams playing a knockout All-Ireland series. You could have Cushendall drawn at home to Killadangan. Like, oh geez, I love that. And maybe the early rounds would be home and away or something, then you get to the quarter semis and maybe neutral venues. Like I would love to see some element of the GAA, whether at some part of being an All-Ireland competition, just to trial it, see how it would work. Like there's been a few attempts in Tipperary to try and create some sort of an all-county under 21A championship, where I'd love to see something like that, where a certain competition is used to trial something outside the box, if you know what I mean. Like maybe you do something like that in club junior hurling, that instead of a Munster, Leinster, Ulster, Connacht junior hurling championship, that we're going to see how an All-Ireland club junior championship will go in a straight knockout, and if it works well, you might transition it to other grades. Like I'd love to see. It's like no different than what you as a Fisher team, you're the guinea pigs for a lot of rule changes. That a certain competition is also tried for a format structure, see how a different structure might work.
Yeah, I think it could work. An All-Ireland junior or intermediate club championship, I think, would be a great place to try it. But then again, I suppose the provincial council that'd be more or less them getting rid of their own competitions. Yeah. Which I suppose they didn't have those junior and intermediate ones until a few years ago.
Yeah.
So then again, I suppose it's paving a pathway to undermine the amount of competition.
But that's not. You could get around it and say if a Tipperary team is a drawn at home to say a Tyrone team in junior hurling or football, that the Munster Council are in charge of everything around that game, that they would look after that in terms of organisation and stuff like that. So I'm sure you could get around it. some competition should be used as on a trial in terms of structure as well. Like, so see
Yeah,
how.
no, I like it. I do like that idea. Just back to that players chart, and I'll bring it up on the screen. Like I just think the main problem is that this ever saw the light of day in terms of like, why on earth would you put it down on writing? I think any club team that's going to go anywhere, you need to have sort of guidelines, even if you don't set them in stone. Some of these are a bit too much, like for sure, and they're always going to look way worse on paper. But like you need a good culture in a dressing room. And the problem is, and obviously the case is with this dressing room, that the culture wasn't entirely right in terms of not enough players making themselves available. Like, because at this time of the year, well, sorry, let's say from early January, whenever teams go back training, up until April, May, maybe, it's probably not going to be difficult to get players to commit. There's not a whole lot going on. People aren't really going on too many holidays. They might go on a few odd breaks. The odd lad will go on a holiday. But it's really, I think this charter is probably laid down because teams prepare for about 6 months. Then it's just about to hit the big stuff and people head away on week-long holidays or whatever. So, like, it's that, I think it's kind of like that sort of window of the year where the weather gets nice. All of a sudden, as a management team, players are scarping or whatever. And some people are committed and some people aren't. And I think that's where this all comes from.
Yeah, I do agree with you. Like, putting these things down at paper, like, you're asking for trouble. Like, was I don't know what you thought initially. I suppose I was surprised initially, but then I'd be digging deeper, thinking, Jesus, like, was in terms of the culture thing, like, was this designed knowing that this would be leaked? Was this trying to read out maybe the guys trying to find? Was it a sort of a false flag thing? Was it only given to one or two players to see? Are they the leakers? Like, are they the troublemakers within the group that they're trying to target? That it doesn't matter what we do, these guys are just going to go against it. So it looks like it's, from what I believe and what you believe, this is fairly legit. Like, it wasn't a sort of a weeding out operation. Like, so, Jesus, I don't know. I think any manager, I don't think the manager had been confirmed. I think he was looking to see a buy-in, like, in terms of would people be willing to do this? And
do you think how much do you think
I think any person who puts this down on paper, I think you've got to have some other thing in your life apart from hurling. Like, this is control 101 as far as I can see. Like, there's an awful lot of that. I think some of it is common. Is a lot of it is common. Like, the trips. Like, we and Laura would tell lads in January, lads, if you want to go on your holidays, get them out of the way before the end of June, early July. Like, and look, we don't. And if you have, we don't mind if they miss league games. So sure, like, once they're around for championship, and I don't think we had an issue. I don't think we've had an issue the last couple of years. Like, and that's one of the benefits of the split season, is that you can now tell lads when you can and when you can't go on holidays. Like, I think most club players know, if you're serious about winning the county championship, having any bit of a holiday in August, September, and October is a no-no. Yeah,
but I mean, obviously there are clubs where that is an issue.
Yeah,
and I'm guessing that this particular club, which has a huge amount of talent, like won an awful lot of underage titles and has quality players, has that issue. I've seen that issue across the board many times. And the teams that are going well and the teams that will go somewhere have a culture of players that won't do that, just as a matter of course.
I suppose it probably is going to take a while, maybe, for some, particularly of the younger brigade, that think, all right, can go away in June, July, and August and be back. Like that. The calendar is different now. If you want to go, you've got to be back some part of July. Like, and nearly at this stage, like, I don't like this thing of having to be signed off by a manager or a players group that you can go on holidays, or you can officially be dropped from a panel if you do this. Like, I don't like that. Like, that's Jesus, lad, that's a bit too much. I doubt if any professional team would probably have something like that.
Yeah, and just to go through it again, like, which of this is probably a bit too far, which of it is fair enough. Anyone planning trips to Australia, America, and Canada, etc., for the summer can't be part of the senior panel for 2024. I think that's a bit extreme. I think like they should give management decent notice, but like I wouldn't be getting rid of anyone from the panel. No holidays during championship, June to October, unless approved by management and leadership group. Unapproved holiday means suspension or removal from panel. I think this has to be down to the culture, and the players themselves sort of agree that they shouldn't do that.
What happens if a player, and we're seeing a lot of it in this country, a player's invited to a wedding that's taking place in Italy or something? We're seeing a lot of people get married abroad now, and maybe it's a 4 or 5 day trip. Like, what happens there? And what happens then if the manager says no? Like, the player to get lost? It's my life. Some of it is how important the player is. Like, if he's a good player, he'd probably be allowed to go. But if he's maybe an extended panelist, you might treat him differently, and we'll let him
look at Limerick hurling. There's some lads who've been dropped for discipline, and some lads who haven't been dropped for discipline.
Yeah, there was a great story in the Sunday Times last weekend, I think, of Alex Ferguson when he got wind of a house party and he found Lee Sharp and Ryan Giggs at it back in the early 90s. And the following Sunday, they were playing Liverpool. Giggs was playing and Lee Sharp wasn't on the squad. Why was that? Giggs was the better player.
Yeah, and that's just the way it is. I'll just run through a couple more of them. So no drinking during championship, June to October, unless approved by management and leadership group.
I think that's been gone for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, it's surely just a case of lads be smart, know when to and know when not to. But like, I would be saying during the season, like after a championship match, generally there's 2 weeks between championship matches. Obviously not always, but if there's 2 weeks and you play a championship match and it goes well or doesn't, have a few unwinders if you will.
And they're a mini bonding session. You have 2 or 3 pints after a win, great. If you have 2 or 3 pints after a loss, it's a way of getting that loss out of your system. You can you don't overthink it and you move. You're sort of, it's like, I think these drinking bans, you're creating more problems by having one than you will there by having not having one.
Yeah, again, it's like down to the players to be responsible. Pre-season and pre-Christmas individual running condition program for listed training panel all need to be logged on the app. I think that's overly unreasonable. No. January to March, collective running in S&C, mandatory attendance and fitness test markers, pre, middle and end. Again, don't think that that's overly harsh or anything like that. Logging activity on the app for all on a consistent basis, greater than 90%. Again, I don't think it's the most extreme thing in the world, especially like if you're really trying to commit and win a championship. Commitment to treating League 2024 like championship in all aspects of preparation. I'd say that's a little bit of extremely worded. You would like all your players to book their holidays for weekends when you don't have a league game or whatever. But the idea that you can go championship mode for 10 months is probably a little bit ambitious and might turn the players a little bit against it. Commitment by team to lead the team fundraising activity, 15k, and to players training funding thereafter. Again, I think players often do have to be part of that fundraising anyway. And again, it's down to the culture. If players aren't bothered, then I think that's a poor reflection on them. Commitment from Dublin / Limerick lads to attend training once a week come January. Again, I think you need to be flexible there. No other sport.
I think most of them would be home at the weekend. So is that meaning once a week, midweek?
Well, if it's
most clubs would be training, if they were in January to March, it's a Friday night or a Sunday morning or something, but they do at least one weekend session. Like, so I wonder, does that refer to a midweek session?
Well, most lads will be coming home for that weekend session anyway. And like if they have to miss the odd one for a specific reason, again, just don't put yourself in a box where you have to discipline a player over something that's quite reasonable. And then 11, commitment to train at the highest level all the time, commitment to achieving fitness and conditioning targets as set down by management. Again, I don't think that's totally unreasonable.
But number 10 is the one that I think got hurt to a lot of people.
Yeah, no other sporting commitments past June, soccer, golf, rugby, athletics, etc. I would say banning a lad from playing golf is the one that seems to be the one across the board that annoys people. Like if you're looking to win a county championship, none of your players surely will be playing rugby, will be playing soccer. Like realistically, if they are, they don't have any ambition.
No, like you'd see it like a lot of. I don't think take Killadangan for example. Like all the Killadangan lads' focus is Killadangan, but I noticed last weekend Darren Moran's a very good soccer player. Darren Moran made his first appearance for our Crony last weekend. And I don't think there was any ban from Killadangan that he wasn't to play soccer for our Crony, but he made the decision hurling is my focus, but and I'd say Alan Flynn is back playing soccer with Sally Park. So, but there was no ban in place that you don't like. There was their personal decision, and like once hurling was over, and I'm sure maybe the soccer clubs were welcoming them back. Like they didn't say, "Oh, you haven't been here." Like so, like they knew the score. Like so, I think Davy Gleeson is the same in terms of like Davy Gleeson would have missed games for Neen Ormond when Ballynahinch were going for the county championship. So like I think once you put bans in place, you're creating a rod for your own back. Like just allow players to make their own. It's an amateur sport. You're not paying for you're paying for love of the club, like love of the game. Like don't treat them as if they're getting a pay packet at the end of the week. Like so.
Yeah. So again, I just think
I'm not surprised that. Did you say the manager stepped away or the club got rid of him?
As far as I know, he's no longer in position to be the manager. Yeah. Whether that's the case of the club telling him, look, that's too far, or whether that person themselves said, nah, this isn't for me. If this is getting out. But the whole thing, it's done from the get-go if that gets out. But it should never be committed to paper. But it just says to me that there is a real culture issue in that particular club at the moment. And I'm not talking about people, you know, that are involved in the background of the club and all that. I'm sure there's brilliant people who are committing massively. But it's just among the particular group of players there at the moment, do they actually want it or not?
And
that's why it had to be committed.
You know who the club is, and I know because like, it hasn't been officially stated, so I'm not going to hang them. But this club that it is, what would you say? They've been touted for a good few years as they should be St. Thomas's greatest rival. They should have them knocked off their perch at this stage, but they haven't. And I suppose there probably is a sense of frustration. Maybe that's why I would be surprised if the club management committee didn't sign off on that charter before the manager gave it to the players. That there is a desperation that we're not taking advantage of the talent we have. But the surprising thing is there's probably a fair chance this club is going to do something serious next year because they're getting a serious underage talent coming of age, and that's probably going to tip off a lot of people who don't know who the club is, because they're getting one of the most heralded underage players. I suppose maybe the Joe Canning of his era coming through, like so. And we all know a really good 17 or 8 year old as Darren McCarthy was this year can bring a club forward a nice bit.
Yeah. Okay. So. Colin O'Riordan, he's been appointed head of the Sydney Swans Male Academy, and that's like obviously he's had that disappointment of having to retire from action because of a hip injury, and I suppose injury issues dogged him throughout his career. And he played 34 senior games for the Swans, which is brilliant going. But 28 years of age now, not a bad position to be the head coach of the Male Academy.
It just shows you how they rate him, that he's gone. Barely does a year with the women's side of things, and they have him effectively running the next generation of the next, I suppose, the feeder section for the men's team. I'm not surprised. Like I don't know if have you come across Colin before, you've ever done interviews with him. Like he's Colin was a man in a child's body, like not only physically but mentally. Like he was 15 years of age, going on 16 when the Tip won that minor All Ireland, and like he was ahead of his time. Like and. He just exudes leadership of every core, like, and even the way in 2020 when he came back and played for Tip, that he didn't even miss a beat. Like remember in that Munster final against Cork when we were under pressure, he won a couple of massive kickouts and we really needed him. He knew when he had to step forward, and look, it's a massive thing for him. It does look like he's going to set himself up in Australia. I was thinking and I do think it's probably going to come into GAA circles in the next few years that you will see a director of hurling and a director of football, and not only nationally but in each county, somebody that sets the agenda, and that if the funding was there down the line, he would be an ideal candidate because he could bring his professional experience back and maybe set up Tip and stuff like that. So look, Jesus, like it's a fantastic opportunity for him, and wish him the best.
Yeah, and do you know what? I'd say more and more as time goes on, depending on how big of a population base and your infrastructure and all that kind of stuff, clubs are going to have sort of these setups as well,
Yeah.
whereby they have someone who is the entire athletic development department for a club. We're going to see more and more of that as the year goes by because
Like,
everyone's so serious about improving these days.
Like, could you imagine maybe just say October next year and Colin comes home after the season is over for a holiday, that the Tipperary coaching and games community wouldn't say, Colin, can we call you in for a meeting? Tell us how you do things in Australia. That is there elements of what you do, and I'm sure he'd be open to that because like he is blue and gold to the core. He'd love to see Tipperary hurling and football doing well. The elements that he would have learned and does in Australia that we could pick up on and probably give us that maybe a bit of an extra edge over our competitors.
Yeah, and I suppose the other thing is the way they develop athletes over in the AFL. I mean, a lot of that would coincide with how we'd want to develop players over here. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if something like that does happen, and hopefully it does. So, by the way, another point about Colin is I remember interviewing one of his fellow teammates when he was playing with Tipperary back in the day. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but apparently before one of the matches, when he was only new on the scene, age 18 or 19, he stood up and gave a speech in the dressing room at that age with full-grown men around him. And apparently the hairs were standing up on the back of lads' necks after it. So just a born leader, really.
Yeah, I know you're just something you know those guys straight away, like, and just going to rugby, like Peter O'Mahony stepped down as Munster captain. Peter O'Mahony was about 21 or 22. Like like a captain is the one that demands respect. Doesn't matter whether he's 22 or 32. Like it's I think that's why. I do think it'd be fascinating to see if Liam Cahill maybe does change his captain. Will he go for more of a spiritual leader rather than old bull, young bull, like if it turns to Noel McGrath or somebody? Will he go somebody with more of a follow me sort of a mentality rather than just being the hand on the shoulder type guy?
Yeah, and that was another thing this time last year. Well, 2 weeks ago this time last year, Noel McGrath was announced as captain. We don't know who the captain will be for next year. I actually just think it's good to leave everyone kind of wondering. I would never be in too much of a rush myself if you're in that position. So just to reflect on the year that was for Tipperary, so the highs and lows, also going to be talking lows. Just going through the teams, like we'll just start off with the SIP team, Tip seniors. Should they have done better? Should they have gone further?
I'd say minimum you'd love to have seen them get to an All-Ireland semi-final. I do think the Clare Cork Limerick games we were very, very good. But don't know, we just either lost our concentration or our edge was gone for the Waterford and Galway games. The first 10 or 15 minutes of those games, like you remember them, you knew we were in trouble, and we knew it wasn't going to be just a tactical shift or make a few subs and we'd spring us into life. We were just flat, and I do think on our day we're as good as everybody below Limerick, but I think definitely we've got to be more consistent than maybe 3 games in a row. We've got to be able to be consistent every day. I suppose that's the thing for next year that they'll be looking for.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, progression out of the group was fairly good.
Yeah.
Left the Munster final behind us. And I think because of the injury profile at the time, there was sort of a fear of what will this be like now if we get to a Munster final against a rabid Limerick.
Yeah.
But I still think it'll be a disappointment from management to not get to that Munster final.
Yeah.
And so the performances against Waterford at home and the performance against Galway, which was a 2-point hammering, really.
Yeah.
So they're disappointed. So I would say there's green shoots because of getting through Munster, but I think overall it's a somewhat disappointing season. It's sort of like a C+ type season, really. On the Camogie side, Tipperary getting to an All-Ireland semi-final, it just felt like there was a little bit more in them, that getting to that, like that there was a final in them, and who knows once you get there. So again, pretty good, but
it was a step forward, but God, you could probably understand maybe losing to Cork or Kilkenny or Galway in a semi, but losing to Waterford, Waterford, we know they've made massive strides in Camogie. So, but geez, we just seemed to be spooked that day when the pressure came on. We just lost our concentration, and like you have to go back to the bottom of the well like everyone else now again next year, and you're hoping to find a bit more. And I suppose you look at what a Beth Carton does for Waterford. We have that in Karen Kennedy, and I just love to see maybe if she's pushed into a more of an attacking role, maybe midfield, half forward line, that a player that can sort of drive things on, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, okay. Then the Munster under-20s then. So just in terms of the league table, Cork finished top. Cork have been fairly imperious for the last number of years. They won 4 games out of 4. Tipperary won 2, drew 1, and lost 1. Then it got to the Munster semi-final, and Tipperary lost by 3 goals to Clare. So overall, how do you feel about that?
I thought they mixed the good with the bad. I thought it was an underwhelming campaign. I thought we were trying to play a style of hurling that didn't suit a lot of our players. I thought we were trying to overcomplicate a lot. I thought when against Limerick and against Waterford, when we've been a bit more direct, played our brand of hurling, that we were much better. But then we sort of went back to trying to protect the ball too much against Clare, and we were caught out. So I just love to see us show our best. Like I thought we had a good under-20 campaign the year before when we got to the Munster final and lost to a good Limerick team. Like I thought we played some fine hurling that year.
Limerick team without Cathal O'Neill.
Yeah, but it was still like they still had Adam English, they still had Colin Coughlin, that a lot of good players. Like, and I suppose compared to Tip, who weren't as heralded. So I think you would think, with a good core of the under-17 minors from 2 years ago, that like there's talent there, like, and look, you'd have to think isn't the under-20, or is it minor next year? Or maybe it's only minor that is it 4 to 5 go to All-Ireland quarterfinals? The top 4 go in with the Leinster top 4. I think minor. It's minor, okay, yeah. So under-20 is yeah. So, it is minor. Sorry, you're right. I think it's just a bit of pressure on Brendan Cummins now next year, because I know a lot of fans were very underwhelmed by what they saw in terms of just the style of play from Tipperary.
Yeah, River Power says the under-20s actually made a better fist at that brand of hurling in year 1 under Cummins. Yeah, it was just the 9-point loss to Cork in the 3rd round, and then the Munster semi-final lost by the same score against Clare was a bit frustrating. Like Jack Leamy, to be fair, put up some big scores, and he was good for a goal in this year as well, 226 over the course of the 5 games. And there's
Eddie Ryan had a good campaign. Like there's Peter McGarry. Like Peter McGarry didn't. I suppose he was probably the one player that you were hoping would take the lead at under-20 this year, and it just didn't sparkle for him for whatever reason.
Yeah, and I just funny. I bumped into one of the Cork under-20s last night up in UCD, and he was telling me that 5 of the 6 forwards that played for Cork in the under-20 All-Ireland this past summer against Offaly are all underage again. So Cork aren't going to get too much weaker. Ben Cunningham is the one who won't be, and he is a massive player. So maybe they will take a bit of a drop off, because
I'm sure Ben O'Connor was gone too. Like, so it's
So it'll take a bit of an edge off them, but still they're not exactly going to be a weakened team. The minors then, just looking at the group stages of the 4 games, there was 1 victory and there was 3 defeats. The victory coming against Waterford by 8 points, and Waterford finished bottom, losing to everybody. It wasn't what James Woodlock would have wanted, obviously.
No, just I suppose off the back of the All-Ireland year, I suppose from the first round against Clare, didn't get going, but then Clare went on and won the All-Ireland. So I suppose that first round loss looked a little bit on paper like so. Look, I'd be expecting. I suppose we are hoping for much improvement. And then I mentioned the new format for people who weren't aware. We're still going to have the round robin in Munster and Leinster, and the top 2 in each province will go to provincial finals. But teams 3 and 4 in the provinces will cross over. So you'll have 4 All-Ireland quarterfinals or something like that. You'll have 8 teams going for an All-Ireland series. So it probably allows for a bit more experimentation and maybe development in the round robin, because 4 out of the 5 are going to come through. Okay, you'll be targeting trying to get to a Munster final and win it and shorten your route, but it'd be fascinating to see how that works in terms of will management be able to tinker with their teams next year, knowing that they possibly might have to only win one game and they're still in the hunt for an All-Ireland.
Yeah, I suppose again coming back to the how we measure ourselves against Cork. Cork beat us by 8 points there, 9 points at under 20. So that just doesn't augur particularly well. I'm going to ask you for a highlight of the year with Tipperary GAA.
Oh, there wasn't too many. Winning in Nolan Park now, that was nice.
By 12 points?
No, in Nolan Park in the league. I suppose we got so many. I know if you just did that actually happen, back in February, I suppose that was probably one of the few.
Well, up by 12 at half time, and then saw the game, lost the second half, but still won by 7 points.
That was probably from something that doesn't happen an awful lot. I suppose that would be it. I would have thought just highs. I was trying to think of excitement. I suppose I had my own personal excitement, but I thought the club championship again in Tip, it was just exciting, enthralling. Okay, you can say what you want in terms of how things went on in Munster, but like in terms of overall competitiveness and just something I just really enjoyed that this year. You sort of went into every game not knowing who was going to win a lot of them. Like you think you have some team figured out and they get upset or things like that. So I know we have a lot of it wasn't. That was probably it. There's not too many highs that I can think something that really got me wow out of my seat, or got me really excited, so.
Well, Detox 101 says Bacon Clare and Ennis. Now that was very, very good, but I suppose that you kind of knew
in 2019 as well. Like we're not.
Yeah, but you also kind of knew that, with a couple of goalkeeping mistakes here, how realistic is this? I'd say though, coming back to get a draw against Limerick and Thurles in the group stage game, when both teams were all out for victory, and that late free that John McGrath popped over, that was kind of good. There was really.
I suppose. That was
Rhys Shelley's performance as well. When he was kind of thrust in, and Barry Hogan's an excellent goalie too. It's no shade on him, but like he came out and he was putting the ball through an eye of a needle. I thought that was very.
Like his distribution definitely gives you if he gets a good National League under his belt, and I know. Whatever goes on in the National League, I'd love to see them. I don't know they get both goalie. I think next year it has to be the same goalie in all league games. If he's your guy, he's your guy. Like and like more games you get in there, the better. Like in terms of getting used to systems and getting used to how to maybe observe how different teams set up and how you're going to get your puck outs away if a certain team sets up this way and a certain team sets up that way. Like so.
Yeah, and we'll have a Kilkenny man in there pitting them against each other, David Herity.
What do you think? Is there any high or even general hurling or football, anything that you remember from the year? Like so,
I did think that the county finals were brilliant to watch on television. To be fair, I thought that was excellent. Like I'm saying to John McGrath, I suppose that just being back, being a competitive team, even if Tipperary did not get to where we want to, there was thrilling games that Tipperary were involved in. Clare Tipperary was a brilliant game to watch in terms of excitement. Maybe the quality was up and down. Even the Cork game. Look, there was some. I suppose Seamus Callan getting his 40th championship goal as well, and every one of them from open play. That's good. Seeing a couple of players come through, the likes of Grode O'Connor is one that would definitely stand out. Do you think Tipperary found a couple of players that we can say ahead of, like even Owen Connolly in the backline? You're thinking now, okay, there's a solid option. You can trust him to do a job. So there's a few players like that.
Like Johnny Ryan, I thought when he came on, played in a lot of games, was very, very good.
Alan Tynan, he took another step forward. Connor Bowe at times, I'd like to see him get more game time. Yeah, I mean, we need a little bit more.
I thought Jake Morris really announced himself as our marquee forward, and I do think you've got to leave him closer to the goals. I know against Galway they sort of set him up to play wing forward, and you can see what they were thinking. If he gets the ball and turns his man, there's nobody going to catch him. But God, I think this guy, the closer to goal you leave him, the better.
Yeah,
and I thought even though when they moved him inside in the last 25 minutes against Galway, while he didn't score, I think he won a couple of frees. We looked an awful lot more threatening when he was able to when he was coming onto ball maybe 25 yards out than he was 45 yards out.
And just in terms of like is there anything you'd like to see in the Tip team next year? Who would you like to see given a real chance? And we know that we'll have a few lads back from injury, like Paddy Cadell. I presume Ger Brown will be okay for next year. Off the top of my head, I think there was one or two others that missed a huge part, if not all, of the season.
I'm just
Craig
fascinated
Morgan
to
will be
see.
back for the full season.
He will, and I suppose we'll have some of the newer faces like the likes of Billy Seymour and
Willie Connors will be back.
Yeah, and probably. I'll have no pressure on the younger guys. I'm just fascinated to see will any of them, like that Darren McCarthy or Paddy McCormick's or whoever of the real younger brigade, I'll be fascinated to see do any of them make an impact. Like it's very hard for them. I'm not putting pressure on to making it, but I'm fascinated to see will any of them maybe spark and maybe bring that sort of X factor, if you know, of a brazen, cocky young lad who's fearless. Like I think the one thing for me, and it was just on the comments Liam Cahill made after the Galway game, that when he said, it more or less said, I'm going to bring my style to it next year, as if he compromised his beliefs in his first year. And I do wonder whether we're going to see a bit more of a physical edge out of Tip next year, a bit more, I wouldn't say cockiness, a bit more of an edge to us, like, take no prisoners. Even become hated more than we're already hated anyway, so we may as well live up to it. Like, so just a bit more in your face, like standing up to teams, like, and even the pushing and shoving, maybe starting a bit more of that, because I think a lot of Tip supporters sort of like teams standing up for themselves, and maybe I wouldn't say bullying, but trying to get that psychological edge on the opponent, maybe seeing if an opponent is mentally weak or anything like that, where they might bow down. I'd be fascinated to see if there's a sort of a bit more of an edge to our hurling next year.
Yeah, you want that team that doesn't take a backward step anyway.
Yeah. And I know maybe if there's any Limerick people watching that, I'm not seeing, like, Limerick are a fantastic, skillful team, but they do like to push the bounds of physicality and in your face, and that's fine. I'm all for that. I'd love to see Tip do a bit more of it. Like, so I'd be fascinated to see if Liam Cahill, Liam Cahill did think he compromised his beliefs a small bit last year, that he's going to change. Maybe I would be that if the likes of Robert Byrne are back, and we know Robert Byrne's a fine hurler, but he's a combative guy. He backs away from nobody like that. Is that the kind of, is he going back for more of those sort of guys that he knows will, there's a risk and a reward involved with guys like that?
Yeah, I think like with Waterford, he had probably more pace and dynamism.
Yeah.
Whereas Tipperary, whatever reason, don't really produce unbelievably pacey players all over the pitch. So maybe it took a year of getting the feet under the table. See, because it wasn't too long after he took over Tip last year that you're already into pre-season. You're probably trying to get lads fit. Remember Dan McCormick saying that on TV after was it the Cork game or the Limerick game, whichever one it was, he was talking about trying to get back up to that fitness level. So that must have slackened off a little bit. So probably a year of playing catch up in some respects, and it's only really after year 2 that we can truly judge him. But that brings us to a question from Detox 101. What's the definition of success for Tip in senior hurling 2024 league included? So it's,
All-Ireland semi-final minimum. I don't care about the league. I want us to. It's all about championship. It's all about making sure we're in the top 3 in Munster. And it's the same for every other county. Like, especially in Munster, because even Limerick, to a certain extent, can't say they're definitely going to get out of Munster, because we saw how hard it was for them last year. So, first target is top 3. After that, All-Ireland, getting the least All-Ireland semi-final weekend.
Yeah,
I think
just even throw in the league, the way the fixtures run out, and people might want to comment on this. So it's Dublin Tip, it's down as Parnell Park at the moment. That's February 3rd. Then at home to Galway, then at home to Westmeath, then away to Limerick, and then finally a trip to Antrim for the last game. So, look, I'd like
those
to see
fixtures. You would think you'd be looking at minimum 4 out of 5 wins, and at least winning one of the Galway Limerick match. Probably the Galway match was at home, and if you went into Limerick and beat them, absolutely brilliant. But I yet to think at least getting to another semi-final, and but I think it's all about building to the first round of the championship, and I think it's the Waterford game. Like we have the bye in the opening weekend, so we'll be playing Waterford in round 2. Waterford will have played Cork, if I'm not mistaken, the weekend before. I think that way. I think yeah. Limerick, Clare, and Cork Waterford's the first round game. So that was it around the 29th of April. I think it's when Tipper due to start. So it's all about. I think you'd love to come out of the league knowing 12, 13, you're starting 15, if you know what I mean. I think you have to a bit of experimentation, but by the end, you probably need to know 12 or 13 starters for the Waterford game by then.
Yeah, I think Tip want a bit of a winning habit as well coming out of the league.
Yeah.
Like
I think we got it last year. We got to a semi-final, like, so did we win our 5 league games, but going into Limerick and losing a semi-final, look, every other county would probably suffer the same fate. Like, so, like, I'm not saying throw the league away and maybe struggle in it, but will just say if Tipperary won a national league and don't come out of Munster, that's a failure.
But because Tip don't play in the first weekend of Munster, it will be a good year to get to the final.
It would, yeah.
And I'm looking at the fixtures. Dublin, it seems unlikely they're going to be in the All-Ireland shake-up next year. So I don't think Tip necessarily need to prioritise a game in Parnell Park, but it's a good physical test because whether it is or isn't, it certainly feels tighter in there.
It's actually a great starting fixture because you're really going into the more, I wouldn't say hostile, but it's a real bear pit. Like you will not get Antonese in there. It's not that usual cliche. It's not. It's just that Dublin don't tend to. I think Kilkenny, you're the only team that tends to run them over easily in there. Like that's, and first round of the league, everybody's motivated for the first round. So Dublin will bring their best that day too.
Yeah, and then so Galway at home, that's a good game to target. Yeah. Westmeath at home, probably there'd be a nice bit of change there for that. And then going to Limerick, if you could win up in Limerick, I think that would be brilliant in the league, and almost treat that as close to a championship game as you will before the championship. And I'm sure Limerick will probably do the same. River Power says, listen, Galway bullied our forwards last year. It can't happen again. Cahill did say straight away after the Galway game, we need to put our own stamp on this. I'd expect big changes. Pace like Max Hackett's is needed. Just, I suppose, a final thing before we finish up. A couple of Tipperary teams playing with schools today. Cashel against Charleville and Templemore against Hospital. So we're hopeful of adding 2 Tipperary teams to the latter stages.
Yeah. Harty Cup preliminary quarterfinals today. There's 4 of them. I know I'm not sure the other 2 fixtures with the 2 Tip schools. Templemore are playing Hospital in Feathered, and Charleville and Cashel is where it's in. Is it in Bancha or I'm not sure. So I'm not sure whether it's a 3G pitch or something. It's but like I would think the 2 Tipperary schools would be favoured to win both games. We've seen how competitive a lot of the games have been so far in the championship. Like Hospital coming out of a tight group with Castle, Troy, and Carrigan Shore, and I think. So I'd be fancying Cashel to come out of their group, and Templemore probably would have the tougher of the 2 games today against Hospital. But like if the 2 of them came through, like that's 4 Tip teams in the last 8, and like I do think, while it doesn't feel like, I do think we're doing an awful lot right at underage level. It doesn't mean we'll end up getting a Tip school. Look, we got 2. I suppose in terms of occasion, maybe I forgot to mention as a high point this year. Was it 8,000 or 9,000 people at a Harty Cup final in Semple Stadium last February? Like I wasn't at the game, but I was watching it, and God, that was a fantastic.
Double the senior county final.
Yeah, like it just caught the excitement. Cashel against Thurles. I thought that was probably, in terms of an occasion, maybe one of the real high points of the year. Seeing 2 Tip schools go toe-to. Maybe it wasn't a classic game by any means, but great occasion. Then I suppose you got to the All-Ireland series and both of them lose to St. Kieran's and Prez Athenry. It seems to be the same thing in whether it's schools, inter-county, club. when we get outside of playing our own, while we're competitive, we're being edged out 1, 2, 3 points in a lot of these games, and I suppose that's probably the frustration, I think, for a lot of people, is that we seem to be losing a lot of games the same way against teams from other counties, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. And also then the Senior B hurling Group 4, I'll just mention Borrisoleigh, St. Joseph's are against Coachford College as well. So my old school there, I'd be wishing.
Yeah, I just saw something yesterday, and I know I think Michael Verney might have had it up on Twitter, and I know maybe just in terms of the debate on the lack of promotion of hurling in some counties. I see that proposal to eliminate the 5 counties from the league looks like it's going to be shelved. That Tralee, the Kerry schools play in the Limerick schools hurling, and Tralee CBS beat our Sculreach. I think it was the first year A hurling final in Limerick, yes, and they beat them well. It just shows you like there's a lot when work is done, and I suppose the development of establishment of Tralee Parnells, like Kerry. I'm not saying, I think I wouldn't be surprised if 5 or 6 years' time that Kerry are as regular in the Munster Senior Championship. Because I think Tralee is such a big town, and there's a love for hurling with Tralee, Listowel area and I saw, I know you won't make me saying, I think under either 15 or 17 last week in the B, Tralee absolutely walloped St. Joseph's, Borrisoleigh, Tralee CBS. And like this is B grade hurling, like that's not bad hurling, like that's decent level under A. And so it just shows you there's a lot going on. It just shows you when an area puts a bit of effort into a certain code, whether it's a hurling area prioritizing football, that it can work. Investment and focus, it works.
Yeah, sure. We have a Kerry young lad with UCD freshers at the moment, and he's part of the Kerry senior hurling panel as well, and he's, you could argue he's one of the better players that we have. Yeah. So, right, well, look, the Nina Guardian is in stores now, so go ahead and pick up a copy of that. That's it for the year. Really,
yeah, I was thinking there's probably not really to discuss next week, or not for a while. So we might take our Christmas break and maybe come back some part of the new year. Maybe if we start Munster League fixtures, and if there's anything to get our teeth into, maybe some part of January, we'll probably come back then. But as of now, I suppose if we had teams going on in Munster and All Ireland, you'd stay going. But even so, that's it.
Okay,
happy Christmas.
Well, happy Christmas. Jesus, a bit early. We'll see you in the new year. Okay, thanks very much, folks.
Cheers.